This is a Fox News alert. Still ahead, Ukrainians in Odessa are bracing for impact as officials warn Fox News an attack on the country's third largest city could actually happen today.
Wow. I hope the Ukrainians are ready. We're told Russian warships are heading to the port right now from Crimea.
For more on this, let's go to the maps. Here to break it all down, America's Newsroom co-anchor Bill Hemmer, our map man.
How you doing, Pete?
I'm doing great.
It's a tough day, huh?
Yeah, it is.
Really, to watch this. And I think, some of the reporting you did a bit earlier today is very significant. I haven't seen any reporting in these southern towns where the Ukrainian military is putting up any resistance.
Yeah, and
that's significant.
This is the main effort,
Yeah.
but right now, this is where the Russians think strategically they can make the most advances that choke off Kiev.
So Odessa is a town of 1 million people, and the amphibious vehicles are now moving toward that city. If you look at Odessa on some of the images of this town, it's a beautiful city.
It is.
I mean, Putin probably wants to preserve it.
They called it the Pearl of the Black Sea.
And he wants to keep it the way it is now, which may indicate that the intense bombing we've seen in some of these other towns will not happen there, like up in Kharkiv or even potentially in Kyiv as well. But I think the fact that there is so little reported military resistance tells us, as you were talking about a few hours ago, much of the concentration for the Ukrainian military has been in the Donbass region
by necessity
for more than 8 years because they were in defensive positions.
Yeah, so if you're the Ukrainians right now and you've got at least half of your force here and you're defending your capital city, you're going to have weak points. And that appears to be the South is one of them right now.
Yes, so if you want here, we just advance this. Why don't we go up 2 here, Pete? And just because I think really this is where the story is today. Kherson appears to have fallen. That's a city of about 300,000. There's a push now into Odessa, as I mentioned, historically significant, especially for the Soviets, too, right?
Yes.
When you go back to Soviet Russia, what Putin is thinking about the significance of this portside city.
Warm water port. Yep.
Yeah, up here in Donetsk, that's a town of 1 million people. You think about the refugees already. These towns they're not small.
No. And they are beautiful.
Mariupol is about 500,000 people, too. There's going to be significant fighting, too. This town here has been surrounded, about 150,000 Ukrainians living there. So this right now is the target for
sure.
Military.
And this Mariupol has seen a lot of intense fighting. And what that would do, should it be taken by the Russians, would connect through an additional land bridge, which provides for resupply.
Exactly right.
It feels almost as if what they want to do is cut off the entirety of the Black Sea.
I agree with you on that. If I could here, I would just go back to this original screen here. So what does that do for them now? Militarily, you know what it does, right? I mean, you can take the southern area.
Absolutely.
You can take the northern area. Then at some point, you connect the armies.
Yep. You connect the armies, you cut off the eastern part of the country, and now they're in even more
I would just
trouble.
make one more point. I think if you want to go over here, we can. No, please, after you. Ladies first. I think that, a month from now, we're looking at so many of these towns, and they're going to look like the video from Kharkiv looks. And
what are we going to do? How long are we going to sit by?
This is a fundamental question here.
How many civilians die before it matters?
I think we're getting ready for a very long war. And the war is going to look like the insurgency looked in Iraq. And I think that's the Ukrainian people's best defense at this point here.
Right, to hold on, or they cut talks and they say, okay, we'll take what we have so far. And the talks have round 2 today at some point.
What happens in the future? What if he does take all of Ukraine? Let's say he does. Then what about the people there? They're not going to support him.
Yeah. I would say, Ainsley, look at some of the reporting we've been doing over the past 48 hours in the West. Anytime a shipment of AK-47s come in, there's people lined up around the corner, down the street, around the block. So you're going to have 45-year-old men and 60-year-old women who are going to be armed with an AK-47.
Right.
That's where the insurgency is laid bare. And the Molotov cocktails, I think, are good for the moment, but they're not going to last over time. What they're going to have to do is build their own IEDs.
And what we have to do for you is to tell everybody about your Fox Nation show.
Yeah, you got it. Sean McCourt put this together, and I just fronted it, but it's all about the Russian war machine. After the Soviet Union collapsed in the early 1990s, they were economically on their back. And for the last 30 years, Putin's been rebuilding the machine that you find now, dropping out Fox Nation. Have a look at this. The Russian assault on Ukraine is a high-stakes, high-tech gamble.
Vladimir Putin has a clock ticking.
Russia is lethal from the ground, from the air, and from the sea.
This is combined arms, air power, armor, infantry.
So how does Russia's military compare to Ukraine's? And how does it stack up to ours? And what you're going to find here is how they rebuilt their military in a lot of ways. You know, it's compared to the U.S. military. You know, what they did with their tanks, what we did with the M1A1, what we've done with stealth fighters, what the Russians have done with stealth fighters. Now, all that is on display for the world to see how effective they will be ultimately. But listen, it is day 8. And I would just argue, like, over the weekend, we heard all those reports in the north and the northeast about the Ukrainians fighting back. Well, where has that battle gone now? You don't hear about drone attacks anymore. This convoy's been sitting out in the open air for a week, and there's been no action taken against it. Why is that? I think it suggests, Pete, that the Ukrainian military is now on its back, and it took only 8 days to get there.
You're going to be on your show in 13 minutes.
Got a great
Bill.
show with Dana coming up. Yeah, Nikki
on?
Haley's going to talk about what happened at the UN yesterday. Significant. I'll talk to Victoria Sparks. She's a Ukrainian-born Indiana Republican Congresswoman. Josh Gottheimer, the New Jersey Democrat, we'll talk to him. Cynthia Lummis from Wyoming. And also Brett's going to join us for his analysis from Washington, D.C.
Josh Gottheimer's the one who said the rebuttal to the rebuttal is like keying your own car and flattening your tires.
I think there are still rebuttals going on and on and on after that speech the other night.
The squad is certainly
good to be with you guys.
Thank you.
We'll be watching. Thanks, Bill.